Hello and welcome to another wonderful episode of Iron Port. This program is proudly brought to you by Serene Insurance, Gold Company Limited, the Ghana Revenue Authority, the Ghana Link, who are the operators of the Integrated Customs Management System, and Meridian Port Services. Our proud media partner is the Business and Financial Times. This program is also powered by the Ghana Ports and Harbours Authority. So this week we are discussing the proposal for the amendment of the Customs Regulations 2016, which will allow for self-declaring of goods by importers. We had in the studio some two guests to discuss this particular subject. Let's take a listen.
Let me begin with you, Mr. Fiatri, and find out from what your initial reaction has been since the announcement was made.
When we got wind of this information as captured in the budget,
Yes.
our initial reaction was that it might be some mistake. So we tried to make some contacts.
Right.
After establishing some contacts, we realized that it is something that was captured.
Okay.
Yes. And we feel that it may be born out of some misinformation, or maybe some people advising the ministry or the policymakers wrongly.
Right.
Because this is an issue that is existentially a threat to professionals.
Yes.
You know, in Ghana, we say that we call custom house agents clearing agents,
Yes.
loosely.
Yes.
And I think because of that, a lot of people disregard the profession. But really, this is a profession that is very technical and procedural. By virtue of the fact that I work as an advocate in the industry,
Yeah.
I understand exactly what goes into customs brokerage.
Yes.
So I do not understand how we will want to just get rid of a profession entirely. I think we have to take a second look at it.
Right.
Because this is not a profession that is done only in Ghana. In fact, when the issue came out, I made contacts with some colleagues in America and in Britain,
Right.
where this profession also, takes place. And they are surprised that the whole country will decide that a profession will just be wiped out, and tangible reasons have not been given yet.
Yeah.
So in our statement, we are asking for clarifications. We are asking for the rationale behind it. Maybe there is something we don't know.
Yeah.
So that we can really understand why government is taking that decision. Of course, we cannot impose anything on government.
Yeah.
We lobby, we negotiate, we conduct research and put out the information there. So, well, we will appreciate it if they come up with exactly why this thing is coming up, what they seek to achieve. Benefits, whatever, we don't know. We need to know.
In your article, you indicated that the directive or the announcement was conflicting.
Yes.
What do you mean by that?
Well, we mentioned that it's conflicting because we already have self-declaration as a hybrid part of our system or operations. There are companies that are already self-declarants. So if we say that now we want to let importers operate without recourse to custom house agents,
Yes.
it's conflicting. It doesn't really put out what they want to say.
Yeah.
So that is why we say that it's conflicting.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So let me come to Mr. Foriata and find out from you what your initial reaction was when you heard the announcement by the Honorable Finance Minister that there was going to be an amendment. There was a proposal for the amendment of the Customs Regulations 2016 LI 2248.
Thank you once again. And let me say, I bring you felicitations for my people, the Customs Brokers Association Ghana.
Yeah.
We are not perturbed, even though we know this will not see the light of day. Because,
Are you sure about that?
Oh, because from the engagements we have made behind the scenes,
Right.
it looks like this whole thing is born out of, like he said, misinformation.
Okay.
Because you would wonder why a government which is struggling, a country whose economy is struggling, would want to wipe out a profession that employs thousands of people. And in a country where we are almost import-driven, I'm allowed to say that close to 80% of everything you find in this country comes from somewhere else. and the key stakeholders, those who are in the middle of all of this, you decide that you dilute their work to the extent you're almost saying that you amend it to allow just anybody to clear.
Yeah.
I mean, when we saw this, we just thought it was a mistake. Then after making the contacts, we realized that no, it wasn't a mistake. But they were actually trying to hide it under the benchmark.
Okay.
Because the first line of that paragraph was talking about a benchmark. Okay. And for a very crucial thing like that, if you want to take it off, do you hide it in a paragraph with another thing? What other things are more important in there?
Right.
Well, all our revenue comes from indirect taxes, majority. And the people who are bringing it, the GRA are directly under the Ministry of Finance. So they have all the information concerning the importance of the freight forwarding business.
Yes.
So you'd wonder why this will find its way in a budget that's coming from the Finance Ministry. Actually, we work under 3 ministries.
Yes.
That's transport,
Trade,
and finance.
Yeah.
So what we did initially was to seek for information because we thought there was something wrong.
Yeah.
So we have written under the Committee of Freight Forwarder Association, SCOFA.
SCOFAG, yeah.
Where I happen to be the executive secretary.
Yeah.
We have written to 3 major select committees of parliament. The first one is the Trade, Industry and Tourism, headed by Carlos.
The Honorable Carlos.
Honorable Carlos happens to be one of us. He's a freight forwarder to the core.
Yeah.
We have also written to the Roads, Transport and Rail Development. Is another select committee.
Yeah, sure.
Yes, we're also seeking for the same clarification. And then the select committee on finance itself.
Okay.
And we don't seem to get any clear signal as to why this is there. They themselves, they are waiting for the finance ministry to come and
explain further.
Yeah, elucidate them
to come with further and better particulars.
Further and better particulars that we say in this country. So we think, I think is born out of misinformation.
Let me come to you first and find out what you think the possible repercussions or consequences of this particular, policy is, if indeed it is carried out.
First, there will be chaos at the port. Secondly, there will be legal issues. People will go to court because the LI they are seeking to amend, LI 2248, the parent law is the Act 891. That's the Customs Act. In Section 43 of that law, our business is a reserved business. It is supposed to be done by wholly owned Ghanaian companies. The CHA, or the Customs House agent, is registered to be a wholly owned Ghanaian business. So if you amend the Act, the LI, the legislative instrument, to allow just anybody who imports into Ghana to be able to clear, the first thing I'll ask you that, so there are Ghanaians who live outside of Ghana, who comes in once in a while with their stuff. They probably know nothing. What would they do? There are also foreigners who live in Ghana, who travel out and comes in, or even they are here and they've imported stuff. The law says it's a wholly owned Ghanaian area. So if a foreigner, which by virtue of the new Ghana card has a Ghanaian card, the version for foreigners, can he be also be able to go and clear? Is it not infringing on the law? Yeah. So you see, there are a lot of things that they're having. We've actually spoken to even, there's another committee, say they call subsidiary legislation in Parliament. We've spoken to all of the people we need to speak to. And they are at the laws. They say, we are waiting for the people who brought this in to look up. So maybe the lines have been drawn, unless, of course, it's a mistake. Then the battle lines have been drawn. We are waiting patiently for official responses.
When you say there will be chaos at the ports, what do you mean?
Oh, because here is the case that even, freight forwarders who have not been to the port, let's say in the last 6 months, they struggle to go and clear. Those who call themselves freight forwarders, who have the professional certificates, what we call the proficiency certificates, and have gone on to attain the licenses. They struggle because it's a very dynamic area.
And a technical area, like you said.
And a technical area, procedurally. Things keep changing. Yeah. So even they struggle. I'm wondering what an importer will do if he shows up at the port and says he has to go and clear his own goods. There will be chaos. Secondly, you can't imagine that there are companies in Tema which employ at least 2,000 people. Yeah. So if all of a sudden, when this thing comes into effect, there will be no such business. They have to find somewhere in the value chain to probably pitch themselves. So they will lay off their people. Yeah. What would these people do?
On your side, what do you think are some of the issues that may come up if it happens.
Right. Let me say that in addition to the brilliant points that my brother has raised, I would say that one key lesson that America has learnt, which the world should copy from the 9/11 attack, is to secure their borders and their ports.
Right.
And so the Custom House Agency or the freight forwarding system in America is very, very tight.
Right.
I want to believe that it is the reason why the proponents of our law decided that this business be reserved for locals.
For indigents, yeah.
Because that is what happens in America. Because our own people serve as a first point of call in terms of security.
Right.
For the things that are important into the country.
Right.
So, for instance, if you bring a cargo to the port, and then a foreigner will have to go and help the officers to conduct examination. In any situation where that person is able to hide anything which poses a threat to the country, are we not doomed? The Customs House agent is a security personnel. That is why they are allowed to work with the customs officers and the other security agencies.
Right.
So this cannot be taken lightly. It's a breach of the law. It's a threat to our nation. And we have to wake up and smell the coffee. We don't have to allow few people who have parochial interests to mislead us into doing things that we'll regret later. So I think that point must be made forcefully. Again, my brother mentioned the issue of jobs.
Yes.
We all know that in Ghana, there are no jobs. IMF is coming, and there's a freeze on employment. Like he said, this industry has employed a lot of people. And they also, it's a chain, it's a supply chain.
Yeah.
So it's not just the custom broker who is working in the port. There are a lot of people, transporters, gangs, and other people involved.
Sure. Yeah.
So it's going to affect the economy a lot. And I was telling somebody yesterday that if for nothing at all, we should be learning from what we did to our banks. If that has worked, we are all seeing what is happening in the economy now. Of course, things happen and you learn from it. So I think that our policymakers will have to take their time to look at issues holistically, assess them properly before they bring them to the fore for discussions.
Right.
And I'm sure if this issue, like you mentioned, was brought out for stakeholder engagement, organizations like ours, who are into research, would have gone deep down there and come out with things that we think will be best for the country. So going forward, we will ask policymakers to, just consult. They should open the space for discussions,
right,
so that we can get it right. We are all fighting for the interests of the country because it's all we have.
If customs or GRA will meet its target, then the freight forwarder is doing something good. Because customs officers don't collect duty. It is the freight forwarder that collects the duty from the importer and pays it in. It's the freight forwarder that does the assessment and all the things that has to do with the tax rates of whatever good they are bringing into the country. And worst of it all, we don't even get anything for that job we do. But for the licensing, because it's a security area that we do, we are private entities. We employ our own people, we pay taxes. Everything we do is we are on own as private people. But the state, like in tax collection, the tax collectors get something for going to collect the tax. We collect the revenue and pay them into the government accounts, but we don't get anything for it. Yet they want to use the fuel bad North Star under the tree stamping and whatnot. But they gloss over the critical nature of our job. The chaos will arise because even there's something we call short collection in our parlance. Where a certain, PCA or post-clearance audit will reveal a certain that, okay, you should have used a certain tax rate and you used another one. So there's a difference. When such things occur, they come to the customs house agent because that's the only way they can find the importer. In this country where our dressing systems are porous, what would happen if the importer is clearing for himself? Because it's the freight forwarder that the government will come back to, customs will come back to annually when you want to renew your license and say you have had this number of short collections, you have to find a way to resolve them before your license is renewed. So if you take out the freight forwarder, where would you go when there's short collection? Because it's a very key issue. Another one is when even an importer brings in any contraband, whether it be it a drug or be it weapons or whatever concealed in their goods, the first port of call is the freight forwarder.
Yeah.
Immediately the agents on the job are arrested, detained, even before they look for whoever. Sometimes there's something called notify party.
Yes.
Sometimes you are not the consignee, you are just being notified on the BL. But they will come and hold you first because you are the agent. And if we look at the law of agency, rightfully, when they get you, they know they will find your principal.
Yeah.
So if you take out the freight forwarder or the customs house agent, what happens when these things occur?
Yes.
Another area is, tax evasion. When there's any tax evasion on the part of an importer, for instance, they undervalue, they underquote or anything, and then I won't use the word ship easily, but
yes,
they find a way to give you an invoice that you think is authentic. A tested invoice and all, and you finish clearing. And later, PCA finds out that there's been a certain evasion, and it still comes out to the freight forwarder. I've had several of my members' companies being, blacklisted or blocked because a certain importer brought in something that there's a short collection, there's some tax evasion. And then the freight forwarder has to find money to either pay or go search with his own investigators to go and apprehend whoever the importer is and bring the person to book. So if you take the freight forwarder out, what will happen to all of these things? It's not well thought through. That's what we think. It's not well thought through.
Yeah.
There are also businesses in Ghana that are in the business of doing what we call transfer pricing, wherein they bring in stuff. The biggest corporates are the mining concerns.
Yes.
They bring in stuff. We clear even mobile phones as part of their things back in it. And they are quoting £6,000 for a mobile phone. They bring in certain phone. They said this is a data phone, and it's way overpriced. It is the freight forwarder that reports these things to government. We report these things to Minerals Commission and all the other agencies. Say, look, these people, we should look at their books. A lot of these calls is falling on deaf ears.
Yes.
The authorities don't act.
They don't.
And we are bleeding because these people would have to deduct all of these overheads before they declare profit. That's why all our minerals we mine here, we get paltry, whatever returns for it. Because they overprice a lot of the things and then they transfer the money back.
Yeah.
In the name of they are paying because they bought on credit.
Yeah.
And it's the freight forwarder stands in the gap for government and the custom house agency. So if you take us out of all of these major issues, we'll go dead.
All right, so those were some interesting thoughts shared by Albert Derek Fiatui as well as Nana Fredua Oforiata Ajuman. Iron Port returns after this break.
Every now and again, Goil makes good things happen. This time, Goil has introduced Super XP Ron 95, a higher grade fuel loaded with additives and yet sold at the same price as normal fuel. Goil Super XP Ron 95 enhances engine performance like never before. It maintains the engine by keeping it clean from carbon deposits. Goil Super XP Ron 95 is designed to burn slowly and thus improves fuel economy, making you save money after several kilometers. Goil Super XP Ron 95 gives you a smooth driving experience, that is, less vibrations. Fill up with Goil Super XP Ron 95. Now there's no need to pay more for any higher grade fuel. Goil has that sorted. Goil, good energy.
Electricity, pay your taxes. Our taxes, our future.
Because you see, without our taxes, we wouldn't have good roads, good schools, better hospitals, street lights, and other very important social amenities. When we pay our taxes, we give our children free and quality education. Talga, my money too small. Why should I pay my tax? Look, small. Salifo, it doesn't matter how small or big your business or income is. You still have to pay your taxes. The little taxes from each and every one of us, when put together, could give your community clean water or that deprived school with tables and chairs. Please pay your taxes. It is your responsibility. It is your civic duty. It is the law.
Impressive factory. If only I had listened to you, I wouldn't have been in this mess. That devastating fire virtually wiped out the whole factory and my warehouse.
Remember my misfortunes last year? Serene Insurance Asset All Risk Fire policy that I took were there to pay for my damaged stocks in the warehouse, and my machines that were affected by the floods have been replaced. My accident vehicle is back on the road thanks to Serene Insurance motor policy. Currently, my goods are on the IC covered with their marine cargo insurance policy. I was just telling Ajima about Serene Insurance.
Oh, Ajima,
tell him more.
As a road contractor, I make sure I do my contractors all risk insurance for the projects and then workers' compensation for all the workers on site. With Serene Insurance, they will make sure they will cover your unknown tomorrow today.
Serene Insurance, a new face of insurance. Call us now.
MPS Terminal 3 is Africa's new state-of-the-art container terminal at Tema Port. For manufacturers, agro-processors and traders, the new port means business can be done faster. This infrastructure boost will improve Ghana's port handling capacity, connect more trading routes, and oil the engine of growth for the economy, creating greater opportunities across all sectors as Africa's markets merge and become the largest trading bloc globally. MPS, we connect, you thrive.
Now, welcome back from the break. Now, news and activities happening within the port and maritime industry next.
The Volta River Authority has received 2 trash skimmer vessels from the Ghana Maritime Authority to facilitate the removal of aquatic weeds at the head pond of the Kpong Dam. The Director of Environment and Sustainable Development at the VRA, Ben Ahinsaki, speaking after a media tour to observe the machines in operations on the head pond of the Kpong Generating Station, commended GMA for the gesture. He said the authority was mandated to generate hydropower from the Volta River and also help mitigate the impact of its operations on the environment and any incidental situation on communities within the area.
One of our challenges is that these weeds that they are floating and sometimes they can break. And when they break, they move towards the Kpong head pond, that's the Akuse Dam, and we may have to shut down the turbines to clear them. So these weeds are critical. And we as a company have a program of managing the weeds, specifically from the shoreline where the communities are and also on the main water body.
He said, since the appearance of aquatic weeds on the Volta River, VRA had implemented several actions to ensure their management and control, including mechanical control, chemical control, biological control, and manual weed harvesting to stem the tide. The acquisition of the vessels, the Director in charge of inspections and survey at GMA, Captain William Thompson, expressed satisfaction about the collaboration to ensure that water bodies were free from filth. He said, prior to the tour, the 2 authorities signed a memorandum of understanding to hand over the vessels to aid in the efficient removal of the weeds from the river.
The estimates over the period of time has been quite huge. The cost of having to stop the dam operating because of weeds and that kind of thing has been quite huge. So this is honestly a very huge saving on the operations of VRA, and we hope that the cooperation between GMA and VRA will continue.
The Customs Brokers Association of Ghana, CUBAG, has held its Directors' Conference for the year 2022 in Tema. The Directors' Conference is an annual event held by the association to discuss pertinent and relevant issues pertaining to the growth of members, their companies, and the industry at large. The program, which was under the theme Awakening the Sleeping Giant, was attended by directors of companies of the association from all over the country. Issues discussed at the Directors' Conference included tax compliance, implementation of the second phase of the Integrated Customs Management System (ICOMS), and marine cargo insurance, among other issues. aimed at improving maritime trade in the country. The principal revenue officer in charge of policy and programs at the Customs Division of the Ghana Revenue Authority, Smile Agbemenu, said the implementation of the second phase of ICOMS has been largely successful.
Just as you have mentioned, we have deployed e-auction, refund, reschedule, advanced passenger information system. There are quite a number of modules that have been deployed. In fact, the second phase is almost completed. Most of the things that are being done now is some form of system enhancement and some improvement. And we started deploying second phase virtually almost at the start of 2021. But there are quite a number of modules and improvement that we needed to do so as to improve compliance and also to be able to simplify more the processes and be able to maximize revenue collection.
The acting president of CUBAG, Nana Fedua Ajima said the association will continue to act professionally in all its dealings.
We are in a business that is very dynamic. Some of the things we used to know that we claim expertise over in years past are no longer relevant, and there are new things. We realize that there's no particular institute dedicated to this course. So we decided, no, it's about time we put up something that would help our people, especially the field officers, so that when they go to the field, they are not found wanted, to help them become more proficient on the field.
Creation and establishment of this building would be realized in totality to the glory of his name. He granted
Now, schedules of vessels in the port, those at anchorage and those expected in the coming week, plus the Bank of Ghana exchange rate, you need to know to clear your goods from the port next. We have your comments coming up next.
I am John from Tema. I think the government should be careful about this policy because it will render several people in the industry redundant.
It's now time for the phrase of the day. Supply chain, a logistics management system that integrates the sequence of activities from delivery of raw glossary of port and shipping terms 373 glossary materials to the manufacturer through to the delivery of the finished product to the customer in measurable components. This is where we draw the curtain on this week's episode of Iron Port. Thank you for watching and thanks to the entire crew. Join us same time next week.